You wake before the sun, not because of any sound, nor the light that has yet to cross the threshold of your home, but because this is how your days begin, always before the light. The world is still in darkness, but the darkness here in Egypt is never truly silent. You lie there for a moment longer on your woven reed mat, listening. There is the gentle whisper of the Nile not far from your home, soft and steady as it flows through the land. The night insects are quieting now, their songs giving way to the first stirrings of morning birds tucked into the reeds and palms. The cooing of doves is faint, distant. Somewhere beyond the fields, a donkey offers a mournful, half-awake bray that carries across the still air. It sounds like it's answering the sky itself. You sit up slowly, the linen of your simple tunic creased from sleep, soft with age. Your home is small, just a few rooms built from thick sun-dried mud brick, the same kind used for generations. The air is cool, still touched by the breath of night. Your skin feels the chill, made sharper by the faint breeze that slips through the open door. The desert, even this close to the river, always remembers the cold after sundown. The room is dark but familiar. You can just make out the clay lamp at your bedside, its wick burned down to a blackened curl. You used it last night, as you always do, to chase away the shadows with a pool of flickering light. It sits now in stillness, reminding you that fire too must rest. Near the wall, a tall ceramic jar holds water drawn from the canal the day before. You kneel beside it, pour a little into a wide, shallow basin, and splash the coolness onto your face. It shocks you awake, clears the dreams from your eyes. Water is sacred here. It is never wasted. Even in the simplest acts, washing your hands, rinsing your mouth, there is a quiet reverence. You perform the gesture not just to cleanse yourself, but to prepare. You murmur a few words to the gods. You do not need a temple to reach them. The gods are everywhere, in the floodwaters, in the sky, in the heat that will come later. This early, the prayer is for Ra. The great solar bark has not yet crested the horizon, but you know where it is. You've learned since childhood how Ra journeys through the night, traveling the underworld, fending off darkness in the form of the great serpent Apep. Soon he will rise in triumph again, as he always does. But you offer your words anyway, a soft whisper like wind in reeds. May your journey be swift, Ra. May your light reach the fields. Outside, the sky is turning. From black to deep violet to that particular blue that only exists in Egypt before sunrise. The stars fade slowly, and the western desert, so dry and distant, remains cloaked in shadow. But to the east, where the sun will soon emerge, a band of gold is forming over the flat line of palm trees and mud brick walls. You step outside. The door is little more than a woven reed curtain, draped to keep out the heat and dust. As you part it and walk into the courtyard, your bare feet touch packed earth cool from the night. The scent of the land greets you, earthy, damp with dew, and rich with the perfume of nearby lotus blooms drifting lazily on the surface of irrigation ditches. The village is quiet. Most homes are just like yours, simple, practical, made of the same baked clay as the very earth underfoot. Their roofs are flat, some covered in bundles of straw, others with baskets or tools left to dry in the sun. From one of them comes a faint creak as someone shifts in their sleep. From another, a chicken clucks softly, half-heartedly, from a pen made of woven palm wood. You can feel the workday beginning, even though no one has yet spoken. It pulses in the air. You know that soon others will stir. Neighbors, family members, farmers, craftsmen, all following the same rhythm that the land demands. But for now, it is only you and the cool hush of the river valley. You walk to the corner of the courtyard where your household shrine rests, a niche in the wall marked with tiny offerings from the days before, a dry fig, a clay bead, a feather from an ibis. A small figurine of Bes stands guard, round-bellied and wide-eyed, his carved features both fierce and kind. He watches over children, homes, and dreams. You touch the figure gently with 2 fingers. Not a long prayer this time, only a gesture, a greeting. It is said the gods listen to gestures more than words. Inside the house, you hear a stirring now, a cough, a shuffle of feet, the low whisper of someone waking. Perhaps a younger sibling or a spouse, their hair still tangled from the mat, eyes still closed. The rhythm of domestic life begins with such small sounds. No loud alarms, no clocks. Only the knowledge that the sun is near, and with it the day's expectations. You return to the basin and pour a bit of water over your arms. The chill makes you shiver, but it wakes your limbs. Then you begin to sweep. The courtyard, swept daily with a bunch of palm fibers tied into a simple handle, collects dust easily. Even in this short moment, the breeze has carried sand across the threshold. You clear it without thought. It is one of many tasks that will come, some small, others laborious. But this one is a kind of meditation. Each stroke is part of the same pattern that your mother used, and her mother before her. The courtyard must be clean to begin the day. As you finish, the light in the east deepens. The indigo fades into amber, and the first true shaft of sunlight breaks over the palm tops. A flood of gold spills across the rooftops, illuminating the white limestone of a distant temple on the horizon. You squint into the light, watching Ra arrive at last. There is something triumphant in this moment, something ancient. He has survived the night again. The world begins to move more quickly now. In nearby homes, doors open. Voices rise softly in conversation. A boy laughs as he chases a goat that slipped from its tether. A woman begins to grind emerald wheat on a saddle quern, the stone scraping in a slow, steady rhythm. A rooster crows, proud and late. The day is awakening. You head inside and gather your things for the day. A wooden staff or hoe leans against the wall, depending on what your tasks will be. Perhaps today you'll head to the fields if the planting is not yet done. Or maybe you'll join others on a building site, helping shape clay into bricks beneath the foreman's watchful eye. If you are trained in a craft, carving, weaving, brewing, or working with copper, then your tools are already waiting near your bench or kiln. You pause before you leave, tying a narrow strip of linen around your head. It will shield your brow from the heat when the sun rises higher. The knot is practiced, familiar. There is no mirror in the house, but you do not need one. You know the feel of your own hands. At the doorway again, you take one last look at the sky. It is fully awake now, vast and blue. The Nile sparkles in the distance, catching the light like a mirror of the gods. You can see the line of boats beginning to glide along its surface. Papyrus skiffs, wooden fishing craft, and merchant vessels heading south with sails taut against the breeze. The river moves as it always does. Everything depends on it. Your life, your village, your gods. Even the pharaoh, far away in his palace, rises to this same sun. And so you step out. Not hurried but purposeful. The land is calling. The first sounds of the workday rise around you. Hooves in the dust, oxen lowing in the fields, voices greeting the morning with familiar words. You join them, walking a path your feet already know by heart. You pass between homes, through narrow alleys of plastered walls marked with handprints and soot. A woman carries a clay jar balanced on her head. A child runs past with a reed toy shaped like a crocodile. A neighbor nods as he sharpens a sickle, the flint edge sparking briefly in the sun. It is another day in Kemet, the Black Land, nourished by flood and time. A place where the sky touches the earth, where gods are real, and where every sunrise is both ordinary and divine. And you, just one among many, are part of it all. The light in the courtyard has grown stronger, casting long golden fingers across the compacted earth and the pale walls of your home. Already, the cool hush of dawn is giving way to the warmth of morning. You feel it on your skin, the slow rise of the sun's power, gentle at first but steady and sure. Egypt lives by the sun. And as the day unfolds, so do you, step by step, ritual by ritual. You move with quiet purpose toward the heart of your household, the shrine. It is not large. There is no grandeur here, no towering column or polished stone relief. Just a niche carved into the mud brick wall, shaded by a simple awning of thatch and reed. Yet this place is no less sacred than any grand temple on the horizon. It is the soul of your home. a point of stillness where your family's prayers, hopes, and gratitude collect like water in a basin. At its center rests a small figure, perhaps Bees, the dwarf-like protector with fierce eyes and lion's mane hair, guardian of sleep, children, and the hearth. Or perhaps Taweret, the great hippopotamus goddess of childbirth and fertility, her swollen belly cradling the promise of life. The statue is simple, shaped from clay or carved from wood, but it is alive with meaning. Around it are signs of devotion, a few dried lotus petals, a strip of linen knotted with intention, bits of bread gone hard with age but still rich with purpose. A small dish holds dates, their wrinkled skin glistening with stored sweetness. You kneel in front of the shrine and light a bit of incense, crumbling resin you prepared days ago, perhaps frankincense from the Red Sea coast, or myrrh from the south, traded far upriver. It smolders on a shard of fired clay, sending up a thin, bittersweet tendril of smoke. It curls and drifts toward the thatched ceiling, slow and serpentine, as if seeking the heavens. You speak your prayer softly. Words passed down through the generations, known not by rote, but by the rhythm of living. You ask for protection, for health, for a smooth day free of quarrel or misfortune. You do not beg. Your gods are not far-off kings to be flattered. They are companions in daily life. You offer gratitude for the rising sun, for the water that still flows through the canals, for the safety of those still sleeping under your roof. The moment is brief, but it is enough. A breath of order before the demands of the day. You bow your head once more, then rise and begin your tasks. First is the sweeping. Even though you cleared the courtyard at dawn, fine dust has already begun to collect across the packed floor inside the house. The desert never rests. You take up a palm frond broom, its ends bound tightly with twine, and begin to sweep in slow, practiced strokes. The movement is familiar, circular, almost meditative. Dust drifts into little piles that you carry away with a shard of pottery. You do this not out of vanity, but from a belief deeply held. Cleanliness is not just hygiene, it is ma'at, the harmony of order against chaos. Every swept floor, every neat corner, is a small act of alignment with the balance of the universe. You move next to the low table, a wooden plank resting on short legs, worn smooth from years of meals, repairs, and quiet conversation. It holds a few reed baskets, some bits of old cloth, and a small jar of honey sealed with wax. You dust its surface with a brush made of bundled date palm fibers, careful not to disturb the items laid atop it. These are tools of your daily survival, and they are treated with care. The smell of smoke draws you toward the courtyard hearth. It's faint but warming, hinting that the cooking fire has already been kindled. Perhaps someone rose just after you, your mother, your wife, an elder sibling. You see the first faint flickers of flame licking the edges of the clay-lined pit. Above it sits a blackened pot resting on stones and a few flat, round loaves of yesterday's bread are warming near the edge of the fire to soften. The coals hiss softly, whispering that it's time to begin breakfast. Near the fire, a quernstone rests on a woven mat, a wide slab of limestone worn smooth by decades of grinding. Kneeling beside it is a figure you know well, back bent, strong arms moving rhythmically as a pestle stone drags across the surface. She grinds emerald wheat, slowly breaking down the hard kernels into rough flour. The scrape, scrape, scrape of stone on stone is a sound as old as your people, a song of labor passed from hand to hand across centuries. It takes time, this task, and strength. The emmer is stubborn and coarse, but without it, there is no bread. Without bread, there is no life. So she continues, and as she works, she hums softly. An old tune, a lullaby perhaps, or a hymn to Hathor. The melody curls through the air like the smoke, gentle and familiar. You offer to help, and she nods, easing back on her heels to rest. You take her place and set your hands to the task. Your palms already know the motion, the pressure, the angle of the grind. The flour that emerges is brown, coarse, speckled with husk. You'll need to sieve it later, but for now, you simply continue. The sound of your work fills the morning hush. From the rooms nearby, children stir. First one small voice, then another, the high giggle of a little one chasing dreams into waking. Bare feet pad across the floor. A sleepy-eyed child emerges into the courtyard, hair tousled, face creased with sleep. You greet them with a smile. They blink at you, yawn wide, then dart past, chasing after a goat that's nosing around the cooking fire. Another child is already outside, crouched near the canal, tossing pebbles into the water. The goats, clever, always restless, have found a spot of grass by the house and are tugging at it greedily. One of them bleats loudly, indignant as it's pulled away from a fig sapling. A young boy tries to corral them with a switch, laughing more than scolding. You watch it unfold with a quiet sense of rightness. These are the small rhythms of family life. Messy, noisy, sometimes chaotic, but deeply human. In them lies the truth of the day. Soon, it's time to prepare the morning meal. From a clay jar, you scoop lentils that were soaked overnight, soft now and ready to be stewed. A handful of garlic cloves is peeled and crushed, the pungent scent bursting into the air. A few chopped onions join the mix, sautéed first in a bit of oil rendered from radish seed or perhaps castor. These ingredients go into a pot balanced over the fire, where the lentils will simmer until thick and fragrant. Bread is next. You take the coarse flour and begin shaping it into flat rounds, patting them smooth in your palms. The dough is basic, just flour, water, and a bit of salt if it's been stored well. You press the rounds onto a hot, flat stone near the coals, and soon they begin to puff and crackle, their surface blistering with heat. The smell is everything: smoke, grain, earth, and a touch of sweetness from the lentils. It's not a feast, but it is filling, and the workday will demand every bit of your strength. As the food cooks, you refill the water jars from the canal, careful to avoid silt. You strain it through a cloth into tall ceramic amphorae, sealed with reeds. Clean water is life. You check on the storage pots: dried fish, pickled cucumbers, dates, onions braided together in long loops, everything in its place. The children are washed, their faces splashed with cold water. Hair is combed, if only roughly. A few squirm and giggle, trying to escape the scratch of the comb. One protests loudly, then laughs when you tickle their belly in response. Clothes are tidied, tunics straightened, little hands are inspected for cuts or bruises. Sand is brushed from legs and feet. All of this done while someone watches the fire, while someone stirs the pot, while someone else begins preparing the midday tools: the basket for gleaning, the plow blade, the tools for carving or weaving. By now, the village hums with sound. Voices call out greetings. A neighbor passes by, a reed mat balanced on her head, heading toward the river. An elder sits just outside his doorway, knees drawn to his chest, eyes shaded by a palm fiber hat. From a rooftop, someone sings as they beat dust from a blanket. Chickens squabble near a water jar. The first of the oxen are being led to the fields, their heavy hooves thudding against the ground. You gather the morning meal and serve it on broad clay plates. Everyone eats together, sitting on mats, passing bread, spooning lentils, laughing at a child who tries to sneak 2 dates instead of 1. The food is humble, but it binds you. This too is ritual, not in the way of temples or scrolls, but in the daily acts of care. In the tending of the fire, the grinding of grain, the brushing of dust from the threshold. These things are not just chores, they are offerings. They are how you sustain not just the body, but the soul of the household. In the constancy of these moments, life finds its anchor. And when the meal is done and the sun has climbed higher into the sky, casting sharper shadows across the village walls, you rise again. It is time to turn outward toward the labor ahead. But first, you brush the crumbs from your lap, rinse your hands in a basin, and offer a final glance toward the household shrine. The incense has long since burned down, but the smoke lingers, and so does the blessing of the morning. The sky has shifted from indigo to gold. A thin band of light now crowns the eastern horizon, and the sun begins its steady ascent, Ra's daily journey reborn. The air is still bearable, still touched with a trace of the night's coolness, but you know this grace will not last. The hours ahead will be long. So you move quickly, and with quiet determination. The first labor of the day must begin. You take up your tools from their place near the wall, perhaps a wooden hoe, worn smooth by your hands, or a plaited seed basket, hung with care to keep the mice away during the night. If you are a farmer, this is your season, the time to shape the land while the Nile's gift still clings to the soil. The inundation has receded not long ago, and the black earth, Kemet, is moist, rich, and ready. The smell of it rises into your nostrils as you walk toward the fields, sharp and loamy, the very scent of life. You cross the narrow paths between homesteads, your sandals crunching on dry gravel, your feet already dusted with earth. All around you, the village is coming awake. Other workers walk the same way, some with oxen, yoked and led by rope, the animals snorting and stamping. A few carry baskets of fresh fish, netted in the early hours from a nearby canal or backwater of the Nile. These will be taken to the market or traded among neighbors before the heat makes them spoil. You nod a greeting to those you pass, but there is little conversation. Words are saved for later. Morning labor is a quiet affair, sacred in its own way. It is a time when bodies are strongest and minds are still clear, undulled by heat or hunger. If your work lies in the fields, you arrive as the sun crests over the date palms and the first full rays strike the waterlogged dikes. The mud banks glisten, dotted with reeds and the occasional croaking frog. The birds are already at their work, ibises and herons pacing solemnly at the water's edge, pecking for snails and insects. A hawk soars high overhead, and for a moment you think of Horus, watchful and keen-eyed. Your field is small but fertile. Generations have planted here, and though the land belongs to the temple or perhaps to a wealthy landowner, it is yours to tend. You stoop and sink the blade of your hoe into the softened earth, breaking it apart in steady rows. The movement is rhythmic, even graceful. Lift, sink, lift again. Soil turns in curling ridges, wet and fragrant. Today's planting might be lentils, sturdy and nourishing. Or onions, a staple not only of your kitchen but also of the workers' rations along the canals and building sites. If the season is right, it might be flax, grown for its fiber to be spun into thread. You scatter the seeds with practiced ease, your hand moving in arcs as natural as breath. The basket thumps lightly against your hip as you walk the row, leaving a trail of promise behind. Others join you in the field, family members, neighbors, or day laborers hired at the edge of the season. Some drive the oxen in straight lines, dragging wooden plows behind them, their bare feet slipping in the mud. The plows are simple tools, no more than pointed sticks fastened with rope to a yoke, but they carve furrows deep enough for sowing. There are children too, chasing after birds or helping to press seed into the soil with their toes. One of them laughs as he nearly slips, arms pinwheeling. An older woman nearby clucks her tongue and gently steadies him. The field is not just a place of labor, it is a place of continuity, where the rhythms of life pass from hand to hand. If your trade lies elsewhere, if you are a craftsman, not a tiller of soil, your path takes a different turn. You step through the dusty alleys of the village into your workshop, a shaded lean-to of wood and woven reeds, pressed up against the southern wall of your home. The sunlight filters through the latticework, casting patterned shadows onto the packed earth. Inside, the tools of your trade wait as they always do: chisels, files, whetstones, a few half-finished pots or fragments of carved wood set aside the day before. If you are a potter, you kneel beside your kickwheel, a simple yet ingenious device that lets you shape the very bones of the earth into vessels for holding oil, water, grain, or perfume. You wet your hands, place a ball of clay at the center of the spinning disc, and begin to mold. The clay yields to your fingers, rising and widening under your touch like a living thing. You have done this countless times, and yet it never ceases to feel intimate, a conversation between earth and flesh. If you are a stone carver, your hands bear the calluses of precision. You take up a fresh block of limestone and mark its surface with red ochre, laying out guidelines for the figures you will inscribe. You work slowly, tapping gently with a copper chisel, letting the form emerge stroke by stroke. Perhaps it is a funerary stele commissioned by a local scribe, Or perhaps it is a simple offering table for a household shrine. You might be a weaver, seated at a horizontal loom beneath the open sky. Your fingers dance across flaxen threads, pulling and knotting, winding spindles of thread into patterns taught to you by your elders. The linen you produce will be light enough for summer and sturdy enough to wrap the dead. Or perhaps you work with wood, a precious and imported material. Your tools, bow drills, adzes, bronze saws, are arranged carefully along a bench. You plane acacia or tamarisk into furniture, chests, or the curved handles of tools and fans. The scent of shavings fills the air, sharp and sweet. In any trade, the first hours are the best. The heat has not yet begun to press against your back or blind your eyes with sweat. You can focus. You can listen. The others in your workspace, be they kin, apprentices, or neighbors, move about their own tasks, each person bent to a rhythm they know well. Few speak. Words are not needed. Only the sounds of chisels on stone, spindles humming, fire crackling in a kiln, or the soft rasp of carving accompany the morning. Sometimes someone begins a low chant, a hymn to Ptah, god of craftsmen, or to Seshat, goddess of writing and measurement. The chant passes from one worker to the next, like the ripple of wind across barley, lifting the work with a sense of purpose. You might hum along or remain silent, letting the rhythm of your labor become your offering. Outside, the day brightens. The sun clears the palm trees and begins its slow climb toward noon. Shadows shorten. Birds scatter from the fields and fly north along the river. The smell of baking bread wafts from village ovens, and someone not far off begins to beat flax fibers, the thudding echoing softly against the courtyard walls. You pause for a moment to wipe your brow with a strip of linen. The work has barely begun, but already your muscles sing with effort. Your skin is slick with a thin sheen of sweat, your mouth a little dry. You sip from a pottery jar, cool water flavored with a sprig of mint or a touch of honey if the house was generous this morning. If you work in the fields, this is the moment to pause and check your progress. The furrows now stretch behind you in neat rows, a record of labor made visible in the soil. Birds pick at the scattered seed, and you wave your hand to shoo them. A scarecrow of bundled reeds stands watch nearby, more symbolic than effective, but part of the ritual nonetheless. If you are lucky, the work is going well. The tools are sound, the clay is moist, the oxen are calm. But sometimes the earth is uncooperative. Sometimes the kiln does not fire evenly. Sometimes a carved line splits the stone. In those moments, you pause, murmur a small prayer under your breath, and begin again. These are labors both physical and spiritual, acts that require your strength, yes, but also your humility and your patience. The sun climbs higher. Time moves differently now, measured not by clocks, but by the angle of shadows and the ache of your muscles. The smell of sweat, soil, wood, and clay clings to your skin, and your shoulders tighten beneath your tunic. But you do not stop yet. There is more to do before midday, more rows to hoe, more pots to shape, more threads to spin. The Nile sustains your land, but your hands shape its yield into life. And so, you work, silently, steadily, in the company of others like you, each soul folded into the great hum of civilization that stretches along the river's edge. This is not toil. This is continuity. This is your part in the sacred cycle where man and land, tool and hand, dawn and dusk move together in harmony. And soon, when the sun reaches its peak and the air grows heavy with heat, it will be time to pause. But for now, the first labor of the day is in motion, and you are a part of it. The sun has risen to its zenith, and the sky now blazes with a white-hot intensity that silences even the birds. Shadows drawing tight beneath every tree and wall, shrinking to thin ribbons, and the very air seems to shimmer. The world turns quiet beneath the weight of the heat. You feel it pressing on your shoulders, heavy and relentless, wrapping around your limbs like damp linen. Your tunic clings to your skin, soaked through with sweat. Each breath tastes of dust and sun-baked earth. The tools in your hands grow slick, and your fingers, though still obedient, have slowed. It is time to stop. No one needs to say it. The work ceases in unspoken agreement, as if all laborers share the same internal clock, one set not by gears or water, but by the arc of the sun and the wisdom of the body. The first part of the day has passed, and for now, the land itself seems to exhale. You lay down your hoe, your chisel, your spindle, or whatever tool you've been using since dawn. Your back aches from bending, your arms buzz with exertion, but the relief that comes now is deep and welcome. You stretch your shoulders and glance up at the sun with narrowed eyes. It hangs directly above, as if Ra himself pauses in his bark, watching the land with steady light. You begin the slow walk home, or if you are farther afield, you head toward a familiar cluster of shade, a tamarisk tree, its long feathery branches swaying faintly, or a broad sycamore fig whose thick canopy casts the only cool shadows for many lengths around. These trees are sacred in their own way, as much for their mercy as their myth. The sycamore, especially, is known as the tree of Hathor, the lady of nourishment and joy. In tombs, she is often depicted emerging from the trunk, offering bread and water to the souls of the dead. But now, she offers only shade, and it is enough. You are not alone. Others have gathered here, some wiping their brows with the backs of their hands, others fanning their faces with scraps of woven reed. There are men and women, young and old, sitting in small groups or reclining on folded mats of palm fiber or straw. Nearby, someone pours water from a ceramic jar into a shallow basin, and a few people splash their faces, letting the coolness chase the dust from their skin. If you are close to home, you duck beneath the low lintel of your mud brick dwelling, the interior dim and mercifully cooler than the sunlit world outside. The air smells of clay, herbs, and old smoke. The thick walls have held off the worst of the heat, and you feel a sigh of gratitude rise in your chest. The midday meal is simple but hearty. You sit cross-legged near the low table or in the courtyard, where the kitchen hearth still bears the traces of morning fire. A flatbread, ta, is brought out, round and slightly scorched from the oven. It was baked fresh not long ago You sit cross-legged near the low table or in the courtyard, where the kitchen hearth still bears the traces of morning fire. A flatbread, ta, is brought out, round and slightly scorched from the oven. It was baked fresh not long ago in a clay-domed oven, the heat still clinging to its crust. You tear a piece free with your fingers, the steam curling upward. A bowl of lentils, stewed with garlic and leeks, rests nearby. The lentils are soft, slightly nutty, and flavored with dried herbs, perhaps coriander or dill. Next to it, a small dish of fava beans sits in oil, garnished with salt if it could be spared from the storehouse. There might be dried fish, caught from a canal or netted from the Nile itself, rubbed in salt and laid to dry under woven mats in the sun. The flesh is tough but flavorful, and you eat it in strips. Sometimes there is goat cheese, soft and tangy, wrapped in palm leaves to keep it cool. Or a handful of figs, sticky and sweet, their seeds crunching faintly between your teeth. Dates, if the season allows, might also appear, deep brown and sun ripened, with a honey taste that lingers on the tongue. To drink there is beer, not the clear golden liquid you might imagine, but a thick, cloudy brew made from partially baked bread loaves soaked in water and left to ferment. It smells faintly sour and tastes earthy. Grainy and opaque, it carries little bubbles to your lips and settles heavily in your stomach. Still, it nourishes. This beer, known as Heket or Ten Imu, is as essential as water, full of calories, and safer than the river to drink. You eat with your hands as you always have. There are no utensils here, only fingers practiced at pinching and scooping, at folding bread into soft parcels to carry beans or lentils. Now and again, you wipe your fingers on the edge of your tunic or on a piece of cloth laid across your knee. This food may be humble, but it sustains you. It is the kind of meal that has fed millions along this river for as long as memory stretches. The conversation, if any, is quiet. Words drift like dust, slow and few. The heat has dulled the edges of thought, softened the urgency of speech. Someone murmurs about a neighbor's goat that escaped into the grain. Another mentions a son's apprenticeship at the temple granary. A woman hums a lullaby to a child sleeping in the crook of her arm, and for a while, that melody carries softly in the air. You chew slowly, savoring each bite. Not because it is luxurious, but because it is earned. Your body craves the salt, the oil, the soft starch of bread. These are the bricks of your survival, laid down in quiet repetition day after day. You do not think of tomorrow's meal. Today's is enough. After eating, there is nothing more pressing than rest. You lie back on a woven mat near the wall, your head cradled on a folded cloth or a palm frond pillow. If you are outside, you recline against the trunk of the tree, eyes half-lidded, ears filled with the droning hum of insects and the distant caw of a crow. Somewhere, a donkey brays. Somewhere, a pot falls and shatters, followed by a soft exclamation. But even these sounds feel far away now, softened by the heat. The land itself seems to sleep. The fields lie motionless, their furrows gleaming beneath the sun. The river glides past, its surface glassy and still. The birds have vanished into the thickets or reeds, silent in their nests. Even the flies seem slower now, their lazy arcs looping through the thick air. You close your eyes, not in sleep perhaps, but in stillness. It is not idleness. This rest is a necessary rhythm, as sacred as labor. Without it, the afternoon would break you. Your body is wise enough to know that even the gods withdrew from the world in the hottest hours. Even the pharaoh, in his palace of limestone and gold, would be reclining now beneath linen canopies, cooled by palm leaf fans and the scent of blue lotus. If you are lucky, there is a cool jug of water set in a shaded corner, placed on a porous clay stand that sweats moisture and chills the contents slightly. You might splash some on your face again, or take another slow sip. Your heart beats slower now, no longer thudding from exertion. Your thoughts are few, and that is well. This moment, the pause at midday, is not merely a break. It is a kind of reset, a return to balance. It reminds you that you are not only a laborer, not only a cog in the machine of the village, the estate, the kingdom. You are a person, flesh and bone, tied to sun and soil and breath. And here, in the quietest moment of the day, that truth sits gently on your chest like a folded linen, familiar and clean. Time passes, slow and sticky. A gentle breeze picks up from the west. You feel it brush across your bare arms, lifting a strand of hair from your brow. The heat has not broken yet, but something has shifted. The light is changing. Somewhere, a child laughs, chasing a chicken across the yard. You sit up, stretch your arms over your head, and yawn. It is nearly time to rise again. The work will not wait. The field needs more planting. The kiln must be fired. The weaving must continue. But for these precious minutes between labor and labor, between the body's demand and the world's expectation, you have known peace. You dust your hands, gather the bowls, fold the mats. Others around you do the same. There is no signal, no bell or drum. Only the collective decision, unspoken but understood, it is time. And so you rise. Fed, rested, and shaded by the gifts of your land, you step once more into the blaze of afternoon, ready to meet the second half of the day. The sun begins its long descent, but its heat still lingers heavily on the earth. The brilliance of midday has softened just slightly, less blinding now, but no less bright. The shadows, once swallowed by the noonday blaze, begin to stretch again, curling like smoke along walls and tree roots. There is movement again. The stillness of rest gives way to the slow, deliberate return to labor. You rise from where you sat beneath the sycamore or tamarisk, brushing dust from your tunic. Around you, others are also gathering tools, smoothing linen wraps around their heads to keep off the sun, pouring the last of the water from jugs into their mouths. It is a quiet reawakening, not rushed, but purposeful. The rhythm of the day demands it, and you follow as your parents followed, and theirs before them. If your labor is in the fields, you return to the earth, fertile and dark from the flood months behind you. This afternoon may be spent sowing barley or onions, or tending to plots of flax, grown for both food and linen. The soil is soft, but the work is not. With a wooden hoe, you break up any hardened clumps, your movements practiced and efficient. The tool is simple, little more than a carved stick with a crosspiece, but it does what it must. The Nile's gift is the silt it leaves behind, and it is this silt that your hands shape into harvests. Perhaps you guide a pair of oxen, their yoke creaking as they plod forward, pulling a primitive plow that tears shallow furrows in the ground. The animals grunt and flick their tails, slow but dependable. Behind you, a younger relative follows, scattering seed from a wide basket strapped across the shoulder. The seed lands with a whisper, carried slightly on the breeze before falling to rest in the warm embrace of the soil. The sun no longer beats down from directly above, but it still radiates from the earth beneath your feet. Heat rises in waves, blurring your vision at the horizon. Your limbs grow slick again with sweat, the fabric of your tunic damp once more. But this time, your body is more prepared. The midday rest has fortified you. You find a rhythm in the repetition: step, strike, scatter, pull, sow, pat down. The work consumes the hours, and the hours pass without question. If you are a craftsman, your tasks resume in the shaded shelter of your workspace. Perhaps it is a small workshop with woven reed panels and packed earth beneath your feet. There is no glass here, no bricks of stone, but there are tools: a bronze chisel, a mallet of wood, a bow drill made with string and weight. You pick up where you left off, perhaps shaping a piece of limestone for a stela, or smoothing the inside of a ceramic jar. The fine dust of your work clings to your forearms and settles into the lines of your skin. Others work beside you. The conversations are minimal grunts, quiet words, the occasional instruction. The focus is on the task. You are part of a machine older than the pyramids, older than most gods in the pantheon. You are a maker, a laborer, a conduit between human need and the raw materials of the earth. Outside, the town begins to stir again. The streets are not paved, but they are familiar paths, hard-packed dirt, rutted by wheels and softened by straw. You hear the creak of donkey carts rolling past, their axles groaning beneath loads of pottery, grain, or building materials. The donkeys bray, resisting their burdens, and drivers shout commands with familiarity and impatience. These carts deliver food to granaries, or supplies to markets, or offerings to temples. Merchants call out as they return to their stalls. Their voices carry through the alleyways, sharp, practiced tones designed to catch the ears of passers-by. Fresh dates, good prices, alabaster bowls, finely carved, copper blades, sharp and strong. The market is never silent, not even in the heat. Here you see women haggling over bundles of garlic, a scribe purchasing papyrus rolls, children darting between stalls chasing a dog or each other. Scribes often have shaded kiosks where they offer to write letters for the illiterate or keep transaction records for traders. Their tools: reed pens, ink blocks, palettes, rest in neat rows beside them. As you move through the village or town, you may pass the boundary walls of a temple, tall and cool in the late sun. It is not just a place of worship, but a world unto itself. These temples, whether small shrines or great sanctuaries like those at Karnak or Luxor, are cosmic engines, centers of order where ritual keeps chaos at bay. Their walls rise above the dust, smooth and whitewashed, sometimes painted with bright colors, scenes of gods granting blessings to kings, or priests presenting incense and offerings. From inside, you hear sounds gentle and strange. The chanting of priests, low and melodic, drifts into the air like mist. The words are sacred and ancient, passed through generations in careful memorization. Accompanying them is the soft, rhythmic rattle of a sistrum, an instrument sacred to Hathor, goddess of joy, love, and music. The sistrum is shaped like a looped handle with metal rods strung across its frame. When shaken, it produces a soothing clatter, like wind through reeds, meant to call forth the divine and ward off evil. You pause for a moment to listen. Even though you are not part of the priesthood, the rituals are not foreign. They belong to all people. You may not step inside the inner sanctum, where statues of gods are anointed with oil, robed in linen, and fed offerings of bread, beer, and wine. But you know these rites are being performed. Their power flows outward like ripples from a stone cast in water. The temple incense, made from frankincense, myrrh, and kaifi, drifts on the breeze. It clings to the air, rich and spicy, a scent you associate with the divine. Within the temples, these rites are precise and repeated. Priests, clean-shaven, clothed in white, wash themselves several times a day in sacred pools, eat restricted diets, and perform complex rituals to awaken the gods each morning and lay them to rest at dusk. Offerings are arranged carefully: lotus flowers, meats, vegetables, honey, and wine poured into carved basins. The statues of gods are not treated as symbols, but as living beings who demand respect and constant care. You know that even if your own life is ruled by the planting season, by trade and toil and family, the work done in the temples mirrors your own. It too is labor, necessary and sacred. Where you till the soil to grow food, the priests till the realm of spirit to keep the world in harmony. This knowledge brings comfort, even if you are too humble to enter those halls. The land is full of unseen dangers: illness, misfortune, drought, death. But the rituals guard against them. The mat, the balance of all things, is preserved by both your sweat and theirs. Sometimes a temple singer passes in the street, her head crowned with beads, her voice carrying a hymn of Isis or Osiris as she returns from an offering ceremony. You step aside to let her pass, as is proper. A temple servant may carry baskets of flowers, papyrus scrolls, or sacred oils, and though they are dressed no finer than you, they carry a kind of presence, quiet, purposeful. As afternoon deepens, the colors of the world begin to change. The sky turns from gold to amber, the edges of clouds rimmed in flame. The river shimmers with reflected firelight. You see the Nile now, wide and eternal, its surface marked by the silhouettes of boats drifting lazily downstream. Their sails billow with the late wind, and the oars dip in smooth strokes. Fishermen cast nets from narrow skiffs, hoping for a last catch before nightfall. You pass granaries and storehouses where state scribes record every jar and measure. Children run beside you, some chasing each other, some mimicking adults, pretending to plow, to barter, to chant. A boy drags a stick through the dust, drawing the outline of a falcon. A girl arranges pebbles into the shape of a lotus. These games are not idle. They are rehearsal. The rhythms of this life are passed on through play and observation. Your arms tire again, the back aches. But you are used to this. The work does not ask questions. It is the price of bread, of peace, of life along the Nile. And as the last light of the sun catches the tops of temple pylons and the reeds sway golden in the breeze, you feel not only fatigue, but fulfillment. There is time yet before darkness. Time to finish your task, to clean your tools, to return home once more. And in the distance, beyond the clatter of carts and the lowing of cattle, beyond the chants and rattles and voices, you hear the steady, quiet pulse of the land itself. A rhythm older than kings, older than words, older even than the Nile. The sun dips ever lower in the sky, drifting westward as if pulled behind the world by unseen hands. Its light takes on a richer hue now. No longer the blazing white of midday, but a burnished gold that slowly deepens to amber, then rose. The land stretches out in long shadows, and every mud brick wall seems to glow softly, the warmth of the day lingering in its rough surface. The heat breaks at last, not all at once, but in gentle waves. You feel it in the breath of breeze that whispers past your face, in the coolness beginning to seep through the ground beneath your sandals. Your body, though weary from labor, moves with familiar ease. The tools of the day, hoe, chisel, basket, or mallet, are put away. You brush dust from your tunic with a few practice swipes and begin your walk home. The path is familiar, worn down by countless feet. Yours, your parents, your grandparents, and their ancestors before them. Life has changed little in centuries here in the valley of the Nile, where the calendar follows the river's rhythm, and each generation steps into the traces left by the one before. By now, the streets and fields are quieting. The clatter of carts has dulled. The calls of merchants have ceased. Even the donkeys, ever vocal, have grown subdued. You pass neighbors on their way home, nodding greetings without words, sharing in the silent understanding that the day's labors are done. A faint haze of cooking smoke curls from rooftop hearths, drifting up toward a sky turning lavender at the edges. At your threshold, the door curtain rustles as you step inside. Your home, made of sun-dried mud brick, is simple but solid. Its walls keep the worst of the sun's heat out by day and trap warmth by night. Inside, the air is cooler, gently perfumed by traces of incense burned that morning. You cross the small main room, perhaps with a low wooden table and reed baskets stacked neatly in the corner, and make your way to the washing area, often a shallow recess in the courtyard or against an outer wall, where a ceramic basin and pitcher stand ready. The water is cool. You cup it in your hands and pour it over your face, then your arms, your feet. The relief is immediate and profound. Dust and sweat slide away, and with them, the weariness of the day. You rinse thoroughly. This act of purification is not merely for comfort, but tradition. Cleanliness holds not just physical value, but spiritual significance. To wash is to reset, to cross from labor into rest, from toil into renewal. You take a piece of linen, coarse but clean, and pat your skin dry. The air is pleasant now, warm without being oppressive, touched by the first hints of night's coming coolness. A gentle clucking draws your attention to the courtyard, where chickens wander, pecking at stray grains and fluttering their wings. You spot a child, perhaps your own, or a sibling, chasing one slowly in circles, giggling all the while. The courtyard is where the next stage of the evening begins. Someone, your mother, your wife, an elder relative, is already tending the hearth, coaxing flames from dried palm fronds and split stalks of last year's reeds. The fire flickers beneath a set of clay cooking pots, arranged atop a simple stone platform. One pot holds lentils, their earthy scent already filling the air. Another simmers with onions and garlic, chopped fine and mixed with crushed coriander or perhaps some fenugreek, depending on what is available this season. You kneel beside the fire and assist. The tasks vary each night, but there's a rhythm to them all. You make crushed spices with a pestle and shallow bowl, or stir dates into barley porridge, letting the fruit melt into a sticky sweetness. On good days, there might be a bit of salted fish or even goat meat, diced small and cooked slowly with herbs. Meat is a rarity, most often reserved for feast days, but occasionally a blessing finds its way to your table. The smell of the meal rises in comforting waves, savory, sweet, rich with the layers of 1,000 evenings past. These are the scents that mark the passage of time, far more than the position of the sun or the ticking of some unseen clock. As the food cooks, you help set the courtyard floor with reed mats. Clay cups are fetched and rinsed, a jug of beer, thick, yeasty, slightly sour, is unsealed. This is not the beer of celebration, but of sustenance. Brewed with emmer wheat and flavored with herbs, it nourishes as much as it refreshes. Soon the family gathers. They trickle in from different parts of the house or nearby homes, drawn by the smell of food and the fading light. The elder members sit first, resting their knees with quiet sighs. The younger ones, still full of energy, squat or cross their legs quickly, tossing each other small smiles or nudging playfully beneath the table. The firelight dances on their faces. You eat with your hands, dipping a piece of bread into lentils, scooping up porridge, pinching vegetables between fingers. There are no utensils here, save for a communal wooden spoon or two used to stir or serve. Everyone shares. The food is simple, but it carries the weight of care. Each ingredient chosen, each moment tended. Eating is more than refueling the body. It is an act of belonging, of weaving yourself again into the fabric of your family and your place in the world. Conversation is quiet. The loudest sound is the soft clink of pottery and the occasional chuckle from a child. You talk of small things, the fields, a neighbor's new goat, the rumor of a coming festival, the need to repair the roof before the rains return. Sometimes someone tells a story of Sobek, the crocodile god, or of Isis and Osiris, or a tale your grandfather once told about a man who stole a treasure and was cursed to walk the desert as a jackal. Above, the sky darkens to a deep violet. One by one, the first stars appear, shy at first, then bold. The moon rises behind the palms, silver and serene, casting long pale shadows across the ground. Birds return to their roosts in the trees, quieting their songs, while the frogs, so many frogs, begin their chorus in the canals. It is a song that belongs to the Egyptian evening, a low, rhythmic trill that fills the silence without disturbing it. After eating, the children help clean, fetching water to rinse the bowls and wiping crumbs from the mats. The fire is allowed to die down to embers, casting a soft amber glow across the courtyard. You sit back now, full but not heavy, and stretch your legs. Someone brings out a lyre or a flute. Nothing grand, just a few soft notes played lazily, enough to fill the space without overtaking it. You might speak a short prayer aloud or silently, giving thanks to Hathor for the blessings of family and food, or to Ra, whose journey across the sky is nearly complete. Some families have a small household shrine near the courtyard, where offerings of bread or flowers rest beside a carved figure of Bez or Taweret, guardians of home and family. A few grains might be placed there now, with a whispered wish for protection through the night. As the last of the light fades and the air cools further, preparations for sleep begin. You gather your bedding, a woven mat, perhaps a small cushion, and a linen coverlet, and unroll it in your usual place, perhaps on the roof if the night is warm and clear, or inside if the air feels damp. Others do the same, each claiming their familiar spot, murmuring their last words of the day. A clay oil lamp is lit, its flame flickering like a firefly. It casts dancing shadows against the wall, shapes of palm fronds, the curve of a jar, the profile of a sleeping child. There is stillness now, broken only by the occasional shuffle or the low sound of someone humming to themselves. This is the hush that comes only after the work is done. A quiet forged not from emptiness, but from fulfillment. The rituals of the evening are not grand. They are not written in stone or sung in temple halls, but they are sacred all the same. They are the rhythms of a household, the shared heartbeat of those who live and labor together beneath the same wide sky. You lie back, hands folded over your chest or at your side, and exhale. The moon rises higher. Somewhere, an ibis calls once, then falls silent. The world does not sleep, not yet, but it has turned its face toward the night. And in this moment, clean, full, and surrounded by all that is familiar, you are ready to meet it. The sky has deepened now into a rich velvet black, and the stars emerge in their slow procession, ancient and unchanging. They twinkle faintly above the thatched rooftops and date palms, each one a pinprick in the fabric of the heavens. You can just make out the shape of Soptit, the star your people call Sirius, herald of the inundation. It's not yet the season for her return, but her presence even now is comforting, a reminder of the sky's eternal order. You settle into the night's second rhythm, not one of labor or preparation, but of presence. The tools are packed away, the bowls rinsed and inverted, and the fire left to smolder. A quiet descends, not total silence, but a tapestry of soft sounds, the chirp of crickets in the reeds, the croak of frogs by the canal, the muted sighs of tired bodies shifting on mats or benches. The children gather first. Small limbs folded beneath them, they settle on woven mats or simply in the dust, kicking their legs idly or twirling pieces of grass between their fingers. Their eyes are wide, but heavy-lidded. It's a sacred hour for them, the transition from waking to dreams, and they do not wish to miss what comes next. A voice, perhaps your mother's or an elder sibling's, begins the first story. There is no ceremony to it, no grand announcement. The words begin like a river breaking over the bank, smooth and inevitable. It is a tale you know well, the great conflict between Horus and Set, the rightful heir and the usurper. The words are worn smooth by repetition, told countless times through countless years, but still they hold power. You close your eyes and see it unfold. The young falcon-headed god, his eye bright with rage and justice, his chest swelling with the legacy of Osiris. You feel the desert wind in your imagination as Set's red sandstorms rise to meet him. You hear the clash of godly weapons, the cries of beasts, and the final moment of judgment when Ma'at, with her feather of truth, weighs the hearts of all who stood to claim the throne. These stories are not merely diversions. They are the spine of your world, the shape of morality and kingship, the reason why crops grow and why the Nile returns each year. The storyteller's voice is slow and rhythmic, rising and falling like the river's flood. Around you, heads nod. The little ones lean against knees or shoulders, content. Occasionally, someone adds a comment, correcting a detail, supplying a name, or laughing at a particularly familiar moment. No one is left out. Even the youngest child knows these stories. Even the oldest still listens with reverence. And then another tale. This one not of gods, but of the old kings, those who once ruled when the world was still new. You hear of Djoser, whose architect Imhotep built the first great step pyramid. You picture the workers hauling limestone, calling chants to match the rhythm of the ropes, raising monuments meant to touch eternity. Or perhaps the story is of a clever scribe who tricked a pharaoh with riddles, or a fisherman who angered a spirit and was turned into a lizard. These are stories of wonder and warning, tales that hold lessons inside their folds. They pass from generation to generation like heirlooms, shaped by each voice that carries them but never quite changed. They carry within them the weight of ancestors, the whisper of temples, and the laughter of marketplaces. You look around the courtyard as the tale continues. The firelight flickers across familiar faces. There is your father, sitting cross-legged with a cup of beer balanced on his knee. His eyes are half-lidded, but his ears are sharp. There is your aunt, plaiting strands of palm fiber with quick fingers, a task she does even while resting. There are the children, one now asleep with a thumb in her mouth, the other rocking gently as though being sung to sleep by the sound of words alone. The donkey in the enclosure brays once, softly, as if joining the conversation. A few chickens shuffle beneath a nearby bench, settling their feathers. A cat, a slinking, half-wild creature that's nonetheless part of the family, noses into a corner and curls up. Overhead, the moon has risen higher, casting silver patterns across the earth, etching the world in lines of light and shadow. Someone laughs. Not loud. Laughter in the evening is always quiet, shaped to match the hour. A joke has been told, perhaps about the neighbor whose bread always burns, or the boy who tried to ride a goat like a chariot horse. It's not the joke that matters. It's the shared familiarity, the way the laughter ripples through the family like warm water. These moments, these stories and smiles and murmured exchanges are where your family breathes. There is little privacy here. Walls are thin and lives are tightly woven. You share food, sleep, labor, and space. But within this closeness is a kind of safety that goes beyond solitude. Everyone knows each other's moods, their strengths and flaws, their gestures and silences. There are no secrets beneath a reed roof, and none are needed. Sometimes, amid the stories, a quiet question arises. A child asks about a word they do not understand, or someone wonders aloud about what lies beyond the far side of the desert. The answers are soft and speculative. Perhaps a caravan travels there now, bearing lapis and incense from distant lands. Perhaps there are cities of gold ruled by kings even older than Osiris. Perhaps there is nothing but wind and stars. And then, quieter still, the talk turns toward tomorrow. There is always more to do. Someone reminds the younger boys to rise early for a trip to the market. A pot needs to be repaired. A wall needs patching before the rains. A priest has announced a coming ritual to honor Thoth, and the family might bring offerings. These are the small strands of life, braided into the larger cord. They don't intrude on the peace of the evening. They rest lightly atop it, reminders of the rhythm that continues. You stretch your legs, feeling the soft pull of muscles tired from the day's work. Your body is ready for rest, but your mind drifts easily in the glow of conversation. Perhaps you speak a few words now, adding your voice to the chorus, repeating a half-remembered story, asking a riddle, or simply agreeing with a sigh and a smile. The fire dies low, reduced to embers. One of the older children takes a curved piece of pottery and piles a bit of sand over the flames, smothering them gently. Smoke curls upward, thin and blue, disappearing into the night sky. You begin to settle for sleep, gathering your bed mat and linen wrap. Some sleep indoors, in the central room or beside the hearth. Others climb to the flat rooftop, where the air is cooler and the stars feel closer. You choose your place, lay down your bedding, and stretch out. Around you, the household does the same, each person moving slowly, reverently, as if entering a temple. The final words of the evening float into the air like smoke. Perhaps a last blessing, a murmured prayer to Bez or Hathor for protection through the night. Perhaps only a good night, spoken in a whisper. There is no need for grand farewells. You will rise together with the sun, just as you have always done. You lie on your back, eyes open for a moment, watching the stars. The constellations form shapes you know well: the crocodile, the falcon, the ibis. Each one a story you've heard 100 times. But they never grow old. Like your family's laughter, like the feel of bread still warm from the hearth, they are what anchor you. There is nothing to fear in this darkness. The world is whole, the river flows. The gods are watching. The day has ended, but the cycle continues. You are part of it, woven into it, inseparable from the land, the sky, and the people around you. And as your eyes begin to close, the stories still echo in your mind, like distant drums or the soft rustling of reeds on the riverbank. You are not alone. Not in this courtyard. Not in this world. The household has quieted, but the day is not yet finished. Though the laughter has faded and the stories have been told, one final task remains, one as old as Egypt herself. You rise from your mat, feet brushing against the packed earth, and move once more toward the household shrine, a small recessed niche in the mud brick wall, marked by simplicity, but alive with reverence. The altar is modest, no larger than the surface of a low table, yet it holds a world. The small clay figure of a deity, perhaps Bees, the squat, lion-faced protector of children and sleep, or Taweret, the motherly hippo goddess of birth and home, sits at the center, ringed with dried lotus petals and smooth pebbles from the river's edge. A strip of linen, faded but carefully folded, rests beneath it, acting as a sacred cloth. Around the statue are offerings left from earlier in the day: the hardened crust of yesterday's bread, a dried fig split in two, a scattering of emmer grain. You bring with you a cup of thick beer, ladled carefully from the family's earthenware jar, and a small piece of fresh bread. These are not feasts, but symbols, acts of giving more than the gifts themselves. You place them slowly, deliberately, as if each movement were a prayer. The beer is poured into a tiny bowl at the base of the shrine, the bread broken in two and laid beside it. These are your nightfall offerings, a final gesture of gratitude and petition before the darkness deepens. A few whispered words follow. They do not need to be formal. The gods understand the cadence of the heart as well as they know the rituals of the temple. Perhaps you speak to Isis, mother of magic and guardian of families, her name spoken softly, as one would address a grandmother or a queen. Or perhaps your voice turns toward Osiris, ruler of the afterlife, whose death and rebirth mirror the setting of the sun. You ask for protection, for guidance in dreams, for the safety of those you love. If someone in your household is ill or troubled, their name is spoken with special care. If a good harvest is hoped for, you ask the gods to remember the sweat of your brow. The scent of incense, though faint, still clings to the altar from earlier in the day. Its perfume is earthy and bittersweet, a blend of myrrh, frankincense, and juniper resin, Gums traded from far-off lands, brought down the Nile in reed boats, and offered up in temples and homes alike. In your own shrine, the incense may have been only a pinch, a crumbling chip set onto a shard of fired clay and placed beside a glowing coal. But its meaning lingers long after the smoke has gone. As you stand there, your hands resting lightly on the edges of the shrine, a silence settles around you, not emptiness, but presence. It is the hush of the sacred hour when the sun is gone and the gods draw near. The stars above glimmer with ancient wisdom, and in that stillness, you feel something beyond the reach of speech or thought. It is as if eternity has folded into the present, resting lightly upon your shoulders. From your courtyard, the sky stretches vast and cloudless. The Milky Way arcs above like a band of scattered flower, called in your language the winding waterway, a celestial Nile flowing through the heavens. To you and your people, this sky river is the realm of Osiris, the path along which souls travel after death, ferried in divine boats toward judgment and transformation. Somewhere within it, the sun god Ra now sails in his night bark, battling serpents of chaos, accompanied by stars and spirits who chant to keep the void at bay. You look up and trace those silent constellations. There is Orion, the sacred hunter, known to your people as Sa, closely associated with Osiris himself. Near him, Sopdet, the dog star, companion of the goddess Isis, whose rising heralds the annual flood and renewal. These are not cold, abstract stars. They are gods, symbols, and ancestors. They are woven into every story you've ever been told. From the distance comes the faintest echo of temple activity. A gust of wind carries the sound of chanting, low and melodic, the voices of priests who have not yet ended their devotions. The temples, even by night, do not truly sleep. In sacred precincts hidden from the public eye, rituals continue under the light of oil lamps. The priests tend to the images of the gods, offering wine, water, honey, and milk, waving scepters carved from cedar, shaking the sistrum, a sacred rattle used in ceremonies to honor goddesses like Hathor, whose beauty and joy light even the darkest moments. You've passed by temples before. You know the fragrance of Kaifi incense, the sight of linen-robed priests, their heads shaved, their feet bare on polished stone floors. But in this hour, even without seeing them, you feel them continuing their work in the sacred hush of the night, maintaining the cosmic balance that allows the world to endure. Their prayers are not just for kings or gods, but for all life, for Mat, the great harmony, the equilibrium of truth, justice, and natural order. A breeze stirs the reeds near your courtyard wall. You hear them whispering as they sway, brushing together like chimes in a slow ancient rhythm. Frogs sing out by the canal, their voices rising in chorus, joined by the distant hoot of a desert owl. The land is never entirely silent, but its sounds shift from human to elemental. Your family rests nearby. Some speak quietly still, discussing tomorrow's chores or murmuring prayers of their own. A child whimpers in their sleep, only to be gently hushed by a mother's voice and the warm weight of a linen blanket. A donkey stirs in its pen, then settles again. Life continues in gentle cycles. The household gods accept your offering. You know this not through a sign, but through faith and understanding passed down from your parents and their parents before them. If the offering is made with sincerity, if your heart is aligned with Mat, then it will be enough. And in the stillness that follows, you feel a calm settle over the household, a kind of sacred stillness that holds the night together like thread in a tapestry. You glance once more at the shrine, now dark except for the glow of the dying ember beside the offering bowl. The beer's surface reflects the starlight. The bread, though small, seems imbued with significance, as though it stands for all the meals you have shared and all the meals you hope still to share. There is no priest in your home. You are not a noble nor a member of the elite. But in this act, this ritual of offering and reflection, you take part in a spiritual tradition as profound as any temple rite. The gods are not distant. They are present in your breath, in your crops, in your stories, in the air that brushes against your skin. They know you, just as they know the Pharaoh, and in the balance of your life, no act of reverence is ever too small. The stars wheel onward, and the wind shifts slightly, cool now as it sweeps in from the desert. In the darkness, the clay bricks of your home absorb the day's heat, releasing it slowly. You linger near the shrine a little longer, not out of duty, but because the silence feels complete. There is a peace here that the sunlight never quite offers. A peace that belongs only to the night, to its mysteries and its calm. Tomorrow will come. The fields will need tending, the bread will need kneading, the fire will need feeding. But for now, there is only this moment, you, the gods, the sky, and the gentle breath of the earth. And though you do not move to sleep just yet, your steps grow slower. Your thoughts wander, softened by the presence of divinity. The offering is complete. The silence is honored, and the night continues. You return to the quiet of your home, the warmth of the day fading from your skin like the sun's glow retreating beyond the western horizon. The walls of your dwelling are cool to the touch now, their mud brick surfaces tempered by night. Inside, the air is still, carrying the last traces of wood smoke, dust, and the faint perfume of incense offered hours ago. You move carefully, out of habit and reverence, as if not to disturb the ancient hush that now wraps itself around the village. Your sleeping mat awaits, woven from rushes, softened with time, its familiar creak and scratch part of the comfort. You lower yourself onto it slowly, feeling the weight of the day in your limbs, the pull in your shoulders from lifting baskets, the tiredness in your thighs from kneeling at the fire or bending in the fields, the slight ache in your hands from the repetition of honest labor. This tiredness is not a burden. It is the quiet satisfaction of a day spent in rhythm with the land, with your family, with the great order of things. The linen sheet, worn but clean, lies beside you, folded once across your chest. It carries the scent of the courtyard sun, of crushed leaves and ash. Your head rests on a rolled cloak or a small cushion, stuffed with straw or rags. It is not luxury, but it is enough. Shelter, warmth, and familiarity. These are your evening companions. Above your head, in the fading light of an oil lamp, the ceiling dances with soft, fluttering shadows. The flame flickers with every draft, painting strange shapes on the walls, lotus flowers, perhaps, or birds in flight, imagined in the mind as easily as in pigment. Your eyes follow them lazily, your breath slowing to match the tempo of the night. These walls, plain and functional, bear decoration where they can. A palm frond or a garland from a festival may still hang in a corner, dried but fragrant. On one wall, someone, perhaps your mother or your child, once painted a simple motif, papyrus stalks, bending toward one another like dancers. The lamp continues to burn, a final island of golden light. Its wick floats in oil, set in a rounded bowl of clay, blackened by countless nights of use. You will let it burn just a little longer. The flame is like a companion, a guardian whose soft glow holds back the darkness a while more. It also reminds you of Razai, the sun's light preserved in miniature, a flame that will guide you through the threshold of sleep. Outside, the village is settling. The barking of a dog reaches your ears, sharp, sudden, then fading. Somewhere close, a baby cries softly, quickly calmed by a mother's hush. A donkey shifts in its pen, its hooves knocking gently against stone. These are not disturbances. They are the pulse of the night, the sounds that hold life together. You know them well. You could map the whole village by its nocturnal voice. Above you, the stars have gathered. Through the window opening or the gap between roof beams, you catch glimpses of the sky, so dark, so wide, so eternal. Millions of pinpricks of light stretch across the heavens, arranged into patterns older than any pharaoh. You do not name them all, but you feel their presence, their meaning. You know that the sky is a place of gods. There is Nut, the sky goddess, her arched body covering the earth, swallowing the sun each night and giving birth to it each dawn. Somewhere in her embrace sails Ra, the sun god, in his night bark, accompanied by spirits and defenders, fighting off the serpent of chaos, Apophis, the unmaker. This is what the priests have said. This is what the elders tell. You picture the journey now, the golden bark gliding silently across a river of stars, the oars of the gods dipping into the blackness, the hiss of Apophis as he rises from the void. It is not just myth, it is the architecture of existence, the very scaffolding that holds up the world. And as you lie there, your own breath matching the rhythms of these great movements, you begin to sense the boundaries between day and night, waking and dreaming thinning. This moment, neither fully asleep nor fully alert, is sacred. A threshold not unlike the doorways of tombs and temples, which separate one world from another. Sometimes in this space, dreams begin to stir before your eyes have even closed. They come quietly, slipping in through thought, image, memory. You may see the riverbanks against marshy edges of the Nile, with dragonflies dancing over the reeds and water birds lifting slowly into the sky. Or perhaps your mind brings you the image of a boat drifting silently across the current, its oars stilled, its sail catching a moonlit breeze. It might be a dream. Or it might be something older, an inherited memory, passed down from your ancestors, etched into your blood by centuries of life along this same river. There are nights when your sleep is deep and undisturbed, and others when the realm of dreams opens its gates wide, allowing you to step into Duat, the Egyptian underworld. It is not a place of fear to you. You have been taught what it holds: lakes of fire, yes, but also fields of reeds, eternal harvests, and the scales of Ma'at, where the heart is weighed. You know the names of the guardians, the proper prayers to speak, the trials to face. These things are not tales to frighten children. They are preparations, roadmaps for a soul on its way to rebirth. The oil lamp sputters once, pulling you gently back into the present. You sit up slightly, reach toward it, a breath, and the flame flickers out, leaving the room bathed in the dim blue-black light of starlight and memory. In the sudden quiet, your other senses heighten. The scent of cool clay, the distant whisper of the Nile, the rustle of wind through the date palms near the village edge. All return, now undistracted by firelight. There is still time before you surrender fully to sleep. A neighbor's footsteps sound in the alley, slow and measured, perhaps returning from tending a sick goat or checking on a stored grain jar. You hear a murmur of voices, low, affectionate, tired. The village never vanishes. It simply lowers its voice, becomes part of the night. This closeness is part of your safety. Even in the dark, you are not alone. The homes are close, the lives intertwined. The coolness of the night begins to seep in now, replacing the day's stifling heat. You pull your linen wrap tighter around your shoulders. There's comfort in the weight, even if it is light. You curl slightly toward the wall, not in fear, but as a habit of closeness, a shape worn by generations before you. This wall, this mat, this night, they are constants, part of the repeating pattern that makes life feel whole. You do not yet sleep, but you are close. In your thoughts, you revisit moments from the day, the way sunlight struck the river this morning, the scrape of the quernstone as grain turned to flour, the smell of lentils simmering with garlic, the laughter during stories told at dusk. These are not grand memories, but they are precious. They are what life is made of, woven together. They form the tapestry of your existence. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to remember more clearly. You picture the face of a loved one, the shape of a carved amulet, the pattern of your father's old fishing net. These are your personal relics, stored not in a tomb, but in the sacred vault of your own mind. Outside, the stars continue their slow, deliberate arc across the heavens. The night is still young and full of watching. Somewhere, far across the fields, the voice of a temple guard echoes briefly in song, perhaps offering one final hymn to Thoth, the god of wisdom and moonlight. You listen. You understand none of the words, and yet you know them by heart. The ancient sky watches over all. It watched over your parents, and their parents, and the first builders of these villages. It watched over kings and slaves, scribes and potters, shepherds and merchants. It watches over you now, and as you lie quietly, not yet dreaming, not yet waking, you feel its gaze, eternal and serene. And the night, with all its depth and memory, continues. The night deepens. The sky, once brushed with violet and scattered with the first emerging stars, has now darkened into the full weight of midnight. The constellations wheel silently overhead, ancient and precise, just as they always have. The Nile, unseen but ever present, continues to flow just beyond the reach of the village, a vast black ribbon reflecting occasional stars like scattered beads of gold. Its waters murmur softly in the darkness, telling their age-old tale to the reeds, to the frogs crouching along its edge, to the soil that drinks in its essence drop by drop. As you lie in stillness, not yet asleep, you sense the living rhythm around you. The day has folded itself away like a papyrus scroll, carefully rolled, placed beside others in the archive of memory. Yet it does not vanish. It remains within you, in the soreness of your limbs, in the warmth of family, in the breath that slowly fills and empties your chest. You are not alone in this hour. The entire land of Egypt, stretched like a sleeping serpent along the life-giving river, shares this moment with you. Thousands of others, in homes much like your own, lie beneath the same canopy of stars. Some sleep already, others stir with dreams, a few perhaps whispering their last prayers to the gods before surrendering to the silence. The gods too are awake. You have been told since childhood that the divine does not rest. Ra, in his night bark, travels even now through the dark waters of the underworld, his companions fending off the serpent Apophis, whose coils threaten to strangle the light forever. It is a sacred voyage full of peril and triumph, and it happens every single night. The priests at the great temples speak of it with solemn reverence. They chant hymns to protect the sun god in his journey, lifting their voices in time with his unseen progress. Though your ears do not hear those sacred songs from this distance, your spirit knows them. Their vibrations ripple through the air like the notes of a sistrum, faint but constant. The priest-servant sanctuaries far beyond your home, in cities of stone and towering pylons, where obelisks pierce the sky like fingers pointing to the heavens. There, divine statues are anointed with oils, clothed in linen, and presented with offerings that mirror your own bread, beer, incense, and quiet reverence. In your own way, in your humble household shrine, you are part of the same ritual. The connection between the great temples and the smallest village altar is unbroken. This is what the old ones mean when they speak of Ma'at, not merely truth or justice, but the proper order of the world. Ma'at is balance, harmony, the sacred rhythm that keeps the cosmos from dissolving into chaos. When you till your field, when you raise your children, when you whisper a prayer to Isis or light incense for your ancestors, you uphold Ma'at. So do the fishermen casting nets in the river, the weavers at their looms, the bakers pulling bread from earthen ovens before sunrise. All these small actions, repeated generation after generation, are the threads that bind the world together. Tonight, in your stillness, you feel that thread within yourself. You are not merely living a day, you are repeating a pattern that stretches back beyond memory. You perform the same acts that your grandparents did, and their grandparents before them, reaching all the way back to the time when the gods first gave shape to the land. The same stars watched over them, the same river whispered beside them. The same hymns were sung, even if their words have slightly changed. You think, for a moment, of those who came before you. Perhaps your father, now gone to the west, rests in the fields of reeds, the promised afterlife, where harvests are eternal and the air is always sweet. You see his face, just for an instant, formed not by your eyes, but by your memory. Perhaps he is young again, just as the priests say the dead become in the next life. You imagine him smiling, walking along canals lined with blue lotus, bending to inspect a ripe barley head. He looks peaceful. You hope he sees you now. You hope the offerings you leave at the shrine reach him. There is comfort in believing that the boundary between the worlds is thin, that the departed can watch and bless, that you can still give to them with your actions and your love. This belief is not only for the learned or the elite, it is for everyone. It is part of the pulse of life in Egypt. Outside, The breeze rises briefly, carrying the scent of the wet earth. The trace of distant cooking fire is now gone to embers, and the night flowers that bloom silently under the moon. A frog croaks from the canal's edge. A moth brushes softly against your home's wall, its wings like paper. Somewhere in the distance, a cow shifts in its sleep, her bell giving a quiet chime. The village breathes with you. Your eyes begin to close more often now, staying shut a little longer each time. The mind floats between thoughts and images, not yet dreams, but no longer bound by the clarity of waking. A procession of memories and fragments passes gently. The scrape of the quernstone, a child's laughter echoing through the courtyard, the warmth of the sun on your shoulders in the late morning, the sound of the sistrum in the temple, the taste of dates mixed into porridge. Each one surfaces and drifts away again, like a lotus on water. And through it all, the river continues to move. The Nile never sleeps. Its waters feed the land in silence, running down from lands unseen, its mysterious source far to the south. It is both the body and the spirit of Egypt, its flow mirroring the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Just as Ra descends each night into darkness only to rise again in glory, so too do you descend into sleep, knowing that the sun will come again. Tomorrow will come with the same rhythm. The dawn will stretch across the Nile sky, soft and blue, turning to gold. Birds will call. The smell of baking bread will rise again from courtyard ovens. Children will chase goats, and the field paths will once more fill with workers carrying tools. 1,000 feet will tread where others have walked for millennia. The first light will strike temple walls, catch on the high crowns of the statues, glimmer on the face of the river, and you will rise with it. The cycle will continue, not because it must, but because it is the nature of this place. The eternal repetition is not a prison, but a gift. The divine order flows through everything. To live within it is to live rightly, to live connected. You are not merely a person. You are a note in a sacred song, a thread in an immense, ancient tapestry, a ripple in the great current of time. The gods move unseen through the dark, just as surely as the stars cross the heavens. They do not sleep, but they do watch, and you are known to them. Not by name alone, but by your deeds, your rituals, your love. You are part of their world as much as they are part of yours. Now, finally, your body yields. The mat welcomes you as it has every night of your life. You lie fully still, curled beneath your linen, hands resting at your side, your breath slow and steady. The last image in your mind is of the river, its surface glassy beneath Nut's great arch, reflecting the constellations above like a mirror to the soul. Your home is quiet, the fire is long gone, the night is deep, the world, ancient and enduring, holds you. You close your eyes, and you sleep. One day in one life, a single thread pulled gently through the loom of time. The life you followed from dawn to dusk, rising before the sun, laboring beneath it, sharing bread with family, and laying down under the stars, is not unique. It belongs to no singular hero, no figure carved into the stone of a temple wall. And yet, it is sacred. It is the rhythm that sustained a civilization for thousands of years. This is ancient Egypt, not the Egypt of kings and tombs alone, but the living, breathing world that surrounded them. For every pharaoh who sat upon the throne of the two lands, there were tens of thousands of others like you, farmers who planted along the river's edge, artisans who chipped limestone into bowls and gods, children who swam in irrigation canals, and women who ground grain into flour, while reciting old songs to the gods of hearth and home. It was not the gold that made Egypt shine, it was the people. Their lives were woven into the fabric of the land they called Kemet, the Black Land, named not for darkness, but for the rich, fertile soil left behind by the Nile's annual flood. The flood was not feared, it was welcomed, praised in hymns, and recorded on temple walls. Its cycle shaped every aspect of Egyptian existence: when to sow, when to harvest, when to repair, when to rest. It offered both nourishment and wisdom, that all things pass in cycles, and that life, like the river, always flows onward. This was a civilization founded not just on engineering and empire, but on balance, mahat, the ancient principle of cosmic order. To live rightly was to uphold Mahat. It guided rulers and masons, midwives and merchants alike. In this worldview, the universe was not cold or arbitrary. It was structured, sacred, and full of purpose. The stars moved in harmony. The gods listened. The afterlife was not a punishment nor a fantasy, but a continuation earned through living well, generously, and in truth. And so daily life, though simple by modern reckoning, was full of meaning. A prayer spoken at a household shrine, a meal shared beneath a tamarisk tree, a story told by firelight, each act, no matter how humble, echoed eternity. Every dawn held the sun's rebirth, every evening carried echoes of the underworld's quiet mystery. The divine was not far away. It lived in the wind, in the river, in the statues kissed by incense, and in the fields where oxen pulled the plow. This long-enduring culture was not stagnant. Egypt changed, sometimes subtly, sometimes sharply. The first dynasties rose in the shadow of the pyramids. Centuries later, new gods found homes beside the old, and foreign rulers walked palace halls. But the daily rhythm remained familiar. A peasant in the reign of Ramses might have found kinship with one from the time of Sneferu or Ptolemy. The language evolved, the scripts changed, from hieroglyphs to Demotic to Greek, but the heart of life along the Nile beat with a steady cadence. It's easy to think of ancient Egypt as distant, defined by monuments and mummies, but its true marvel lies not just in its grandeur, but in its continuity. It is one of the few civilizations in human history where the same land, language, and spiritual traditions endured across millennia. Empires rose and fell elsewhere in the world, but Egypt remained rooted, calm, quietly wise. At its height, Egypt was a land of profound sophistication. Its physicians studied anatomy and treated wounds with honey and resins. Its scribes kept records of harvests, taxes, legal disputes, and poetry. Its architects aligned tombs to the stars, built temples that stood for thousands of years, and understood how to move stone without machines. Its artists painted scenes of everyday life that still speak across the ages: fishermen casting nets, women weaving, children playing, cats stretching in the sun. Yet for all its achievements, Egypt was not without hardship. Droughts came, invasions swept across the delta, dynasties collapsed. Disease and famine struck more than once, but the people endured just as the river did. Their resilience came from their belief in the order of the universe, from their ties to family, and from a culture that valued memory as much as survival. To be Egyptian was not just to inhabit a place, it was to inherit a tradition. Children grew up hearing tales of the gods, learning the rituals that honored them. Farmers passed down tools and planting knowledge. Fathers taught sons the skill of shaping copper or turning wood. Mothers passed on the secrets of medicine and prayer. Every home was a world of its own, but also a reflection of something greater, a miniature cosmos echoing the divine harmony. And within this world, there was room for joy. Not simply grand ceremonies or state festivals, but the small joys that make life full. The laughter of a shared joke, the sweetness of dates eaten warm from the sun, the scent of myrrh rising from the skin, the feeling of cool water splashed on the face at dawn. These too were sacred. They were offerings to life itself. The great cities, Memphis, Thebes, Heliopolis, Akhetaten, housed temples whose columns soared like petrified lotus stems. But even in distant villages far from the gaze of the palace or the priesthood, life followed sacred rhythms. The line between the spiritual and the mundane was not sharp. Every threshold was a portal. Every sunrise, a kind of resurrection. Every burial, a journey home. To live in ancient Egypt was to be part of a world saturated with meaning. Even the stars were mapped not just for navigation, but as guardians of time, records of the gods' movement across the heavens. The lunar cycles, the decans, the heliacal rising of Sirius, all of it woven into agriculture, religion, and royal legitimacy. Time itself was divine, measured not merely in days and seasons, but in eternity. And now, across the span of centuries, this world still speaks. It speaks through the hieroglyphs carved deep into sandstone, through the battered statues half buried in sand, through the quiet dignity of the artifacts left behind. But it speaks most clearly in the echo of daily life, the kind you've walked through, a world of mats and meals, sweat and storytelling, prayers and pottery, a world where the sacred lived in the ordinary. It was not a perfect world. It had injustice, like all human civilizations. It knew hunger, fear, and toil. But it also knew how to celebrate life, how to preserve memory, and how to honor the unseen forces that hold all things together. And in that, perhaps, lies its true greatness, not in its rulers' titles or the height of its pyramids, but in its deep, enduring understanding of harmony with earth, with the divine, with one another. The eternal cycle of life in ancient Egypt was not just about birth, death, and rebirth. It was about finding one's place in the great unfolding of time. It was about living with intention, with reverence, and with the quiet knowledge that each life, however small, is part of something far larger than itself. You have walked through one day, one life, but there were millions more like it, each with its own rhythm, its own joys and sorrows. Together, they formed a civilization that still draws wonder after more than 5,000 years. A civilization that knew how to align its buildings with the stars, how to embalm the dead for eternity, how to make ink from soot and papyrus from reeds, but also how to live simply and beautifully by the flow of a sacred river. That river still flows. And so too does the memory of this ancient land, not just in museums or textbooks, but in every quiet moment when someone listens for the past. In every grain of wheat planted, every story passed from parent to child, every sunrise watched with reverence. One day, one life, and the echo of eternity.